So this afternoon we chanted the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the Buddha's first discourse, and I think it's really important to review these fundamental teachings fairly frequently, fairly consistently. It's so easy to drift in terms of our focus. You think when we're meditating, paying attention to one in-breath, one out-breath, how easily and how quickly we drift with that. But then, also just in terms of the conception of what are we doing when we meditate, or what are we doing when we are practicing, trying to apply the teachings in our day-to-day life. It's easy to drift in that as well, because it's just the nature of our mind, and then the nature of the various pulls within the world, and the things that pull our attention in many different directions. So that recollection of that very directness of the Buddha's teachings, Four Noble Truths, and the consistency that the Buddha reiterates over and over again, that I teach only two things: dukkha and cessation of dukkha. So that understanding of suffering and the ability to free the mind from that. So that because it's easy to go into, speculation of the various possibilities within the world, even within the philosophy of the Buddhas. The Buddha's teachings can be quite engaging on an intellectual level, and it's easy to be pulled into speculation. And of course, the Buddha is very clear that the speculation of the origins of the world, speculations of the cessation, the endings of the world, and all of that is extraneous, and to be able to focus on what our how do we hold it? How do we approach it? How do we what do we attend to? So that attending to dukkha and cessation of dukkha is really important. So when they reflect on the basis of insight in Buddhism, insight into a liberated insight, and it always comes back to this insight into anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, not self. It isn't it isn't all that flashy. It isn't all that exciting on a certain level, but it's what helps the mind to see things clearly and to see things in their true nature. So that particularly that understanding of not self. Of course, it's not self is not separate from understanding of impermanence and unsatisfactoriness. It's very integral, or it's a logical extension. The Buddha makes that very explicit with that sense of what is impermanent, changing, unstable, fraught with suffering and dissatisfaction. Is that suitable to be taken as this is me, this is mine, this is myself? Of course, on a logical basis, it's that's isn't how it works. So, being able to continually bringing the mind back to those fundamentals of what is it that's the basis of insight, and what's the purpose of that insight, and it's always to free the heart from its discontent and dissatisfaction. Of course, that is that's on a certain level, that's the easy point in terms of understanding. What is the basis of insight? What's the purpose of our insight? But then to be able to cultivate the foundation of what's going to facilitate our ability to see clearly. That's what takes time. That's what takes effort. That's what takes some skill. So that learning how to do that, and that's where the training comes in, and that's why the Buddha's teaching is more around a training, education, an opportunity for learning and understanding. And that sense of training and developing certain characteristics or abilities, just around, say, how we approach the things that pull the mind away. I came across in my recent reading a wonderful, to me, certain psychological jargony phrase, intertemporal utility function. Which, I mean, it has a great. What it is the I say the willingness to delay gratification, or the ability to forgo something that we like for gaining more of that something later. So, and again, that's sort of there's a certain training that's sort of needed, and so often we think of that, these kind of being able to say, okay, I've got to boost my intertemporal utility function here. Or that we perceive it in terms of having a certain character trait that one is able to do that, or that one should do that. If I were a real practitioner, I would do that. But all those are oftentimes what we overlook is how conditioned our our habits are in relationship to, say, like gratification or things that pull on the senses, and we and that cultivation of mindfulness awareness in order to see these different pulls, and even when we do restrain ourselves, how does it affect us? How do we pull back from just a habit of going for it? But then all the layers of projection that we can easily create, because we're constantly buying into a self-perception, self-image, and but sometimes we don't. Again, there's things that are we're conditioned, and often we don't even notice the conditioning. Like they've done experiments with people just doing something really simple task, squeezing something, and saying squeezing it, and there would be some sort of reward, and when you're doing this sort of just squeezing this, but they just subliminally they show an image of something that is, it's like it was done. This particular experiment was done in Britain, so it was just an image of a penny coin and an image of a pound coin, and without knowing that it was happening, that people were willingly, squeezing harder for the larger amount. It's just this sort of we're conditioned. This conditioning is so. And of course, there's many experiments of that tend to highlight just how conditioned we are. And I mean that's a good one. There's many that are that highlight the same thing. I mean, I won't go into them, but it is interesting to recognize it, because it's something that isn't. It tends not to be recognized. But to me, what that points to is much more the need to be attentive to the circumstances that we live in, who we associate with, what we're doing, and because it's just like the Buddha pointing to the necessity of kalyana mitta, and associating with good people, putting oneself in good circumstances, putting oneself into the that associating with having good friends in Dhamma, and that because that's a different conditioning factor that is essential, and because we're going to be conditioned anyway, whether we like it or not, whether we agree with it or not, whether we recognize it or not. So that to put conscious attention, conscious effort into putting ourselves into circumstances that really support our aspiration and our kind of a recognition that yes, I really would like to experience and understand this whole problem of suffering and cessation of suffering, and to be able to do that, and so that sense of making and putting attention onto the circumstances that we people that we associate with, the things that we do, the things that we attend to, because it is affecting us, and that so of course, great way to come spend a Sunday, come to the monastery, and to listen to Dhamma, practice Dhamma, and for all of us to be alert to that reality, and to to be putting forth the effort to be both helping ourselves but helping others in that. There's a it's like a Jataka story that I came across that that pointed to the or highlighted the need for say like a certain harmony, unity, community, and it's just a Jataka story of a time when the Buddha was, in a previous life, was a quail, and had kind of course responsibility as the leader of a whole big flock of quail, and people served there, or people, the other quail in his group started telling him that some quail were disappearing. Their friends were they were there for a while, and then they're gone. And so the Buddha, as the head quail, starts to check it out and try to figure it out, and he realizes what's happening is there's a hunter has figured out how to imitate the sound of a hurt quail, and draw the quail close to them, and then throw a net over the quail who came close, and of course then they get taken off to be put in a pot and eaten. So the say the Buddha has the Bodhisattva rather, as the head quails, and says, what we really have to do is everybody has to really pay attention to staying close to each other. We have to really stay as a group, keep unified, and keep our communal space. And then when, if that hunter is able to get close, what we can do is if that net comes over us, and everybody flies up at the same time, and then we'll go over to that bramble patch, and which here, probably has seen quail, and certainly here they are. There's a whole bunch. There's like a blackberry bush down below here. That's full of quail. They love bramble bushes and blackberries, and that's their place of safety. But then they so anyway, they do that, and the net gets tangled in the blackberry bushes and the bramble bushes. The quail are safe; they get to escape, and the hunter is vexed and frustrated because he's not getting any more quail. But of course, they get complacent, and the next time, it goes on for some time, and then they hold their harmony together for a while, and then they, getting complacent, the hunter does catch them, and as they're getting ready to sort of fly up, they're in close quarters, and one of them puts her foot in somebody's head, and somebody steps on somebody else's wing, and they start having some jostling and conflict. And why are you doing this? Why are you doing? And of course, that impedes their ability to escape, and they are a few of them are caught. So it's a of course Bodhisattva has to come in and restore harmony again. But that's the that kind of the illustration of the ability when we help each other, support each other, and encourage each other. Then there's a strength there, and there's a ability to support in safety and well-being. And for those quail, that was a very real thing. Gets beyond theoretical when you're being carted off to be put in a pot. So but as a say a cautionary tale, or as a parable, as us as human beings, as say within our own practice and our own living together, these values of community, values of supporting each other and giving attention to the strength that comes when we do things in a way that supports a skillfulness in our lifestyle, in our practice, in our living together. So it's on a certain level, it's a quaint little tale, but I think we can all see that the benefits of that supporting and encouraging and being not caught in conflict is so important. And I think in the recent fires that we had, when it's something that was quite striking and is still manifesting in terms of the community being mutually supportive of each other. It has a huge effect, and a very different one, and different quality of say dukkha and freedom from dukkha. If there's not that that support, and even without some major disaster happening, being able to set up the conditions for our ongoing well-being, because in that illustration of when you're getting some kind of reward, and subliminally it's more, you're more motivated, even if it's not a conscious motivation. You get pulled into that kind of both competition and gratification, and it's important to understand that that's the way the mind works. It is not self, in the sense, as high and noble as we would like to think we would like to be. When the reality hits, that conditioning kicks in, and it pulls us in ways that we wouldn't normally on a rational level think. And in the same way, just like with the quail, sort of, you sort of getting upset over some, here you are stuck in a net, why are you sticking your elbow in my net? And it's just it's very human, and you end up sort of compromising one's well-being over something that is some perceived slight or some perceived disadvantage, and end up say suffering more, even though your whole, say, rational goal is to be free from suffering. So it's a you want to be paying attention to the conditions that really do support, and pay attention to the people that one associates, pay attention to the ways in which one puts forth effort to stay on a path of training and practice and association with good people, and even when you're with good people, you still have to pay attention to that, because those conditioning factors are kind of fundamental to reality. And that just understanding say understanding conditioning, understanding human nature, so one understands oneself, but understanding others as well. That it's that ability to adjust oneself to the reality of the human condition. There is suffering. There is this conditioning factor. There are results to our actions. It's a fundamental to right view. There are results to our actions, and there is good. There is things that aren't good. So it's being able to factor in that and really understand it and really internalize it. Similarly, I came across a nice little story of how how do you say, tangible, so that on any given day, sort of seeing this day, there's how many times, how many nails were there on this day, how many nails were on that day, and of course, when you see that first day, and there's all these nails, I'm going to change my on any given day, start to really, and then those outbursts of take the opportunity to speak kindly and to say something and to take the opportunity rather than speaking and saying so. So then started out, and the child calls the mother out, and they're just so excited, so totally stoked, and that they finally and takes the child, and so, it's really really praising the child, but then also pointing out that everywhere where there was a nail, there's a mark there, and those are those are when we speak with anger, when we speak with ill will, when we speak in ways of hurting in different ways, there's a mark there, even if you ask for forgiveness, even if you and it's just natural. It's just the way that the heart works. So in particular, when we think in terms of living as that are recognized as to be of well-being and harmony, to delay the gratification. It's not just delay the gratification. It isn't just following desire. It's also the gratification of following a feeling of aversion or ill will, or following an impulse of say confusion or doubt, and just getting pulled into it, because there's a certain gratification of this is real. This is what the world is. This is what I am, and we can be pulled into it, and to not be hooked by that, not to be caught by that, and not to get to not to buy into the illusion of that. And of course, that's where kind of that cultivation of the path and cultivation of the supports for the path, and just the environment, the people, the conditions. And when we know that the world is a conditioned place, then to be attentive to the conditions that are supportive, and that fosters. It isn't as if we're just because we've got good intentions and we've read a Buddhist book, so we're going to get Buddhist insight. It's really this cultivation that has to be attended to and be really committing oneself to it, giving oneself to it over a fairly long period of time, so that just this reflecting and investigating and realizing that understanding of dukkha and cessation of dukkha, it's really central, and it takes some wisdom and discernment to really make it happen. So I'll offer that for reflection today.